All right, welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Edge. This is an RPG and gaming news podcast. My name is Hat.
And I'm Eric.
And I am Stan.
And today we are going to be talking about Star Ocean First Departure R on the Switch. We're going to be giving our impressions with that game, and then we're also going to be talking about Kingdom Hearts 3, the new DLC. We got Final Fantasy characters returning. We got possibly some other stuff coming up in there as well we want to go over, so we're really excited to talk about that. And then we have some quick news items. Basically, Cold Steel 3 is coming to the Switch, and we got an update with Crosscode. So we're going to dive into that stuff a little bit. And then we have a Discord question from Valvedrex. It says, how would you design difficulty modes in a turn-based RPG without making winning determined by more grinding on higher difficulties? This is a question that should have been answered 20 years ago with JRPGs. But regardless, we're going to solve this question tonight on the Phoenix Edge RPG podcast. And all future JRPG games will be no longer grindy. They'll just have this solved after tonight. So make sure you all stay tuned in till the end because we want to solve this. But moving into our first topic here, we have Star Ocean First Departure Remake. Now, for anyone that's been living under a rock, this game that just came out on the Switch and PS4, I don't know if it came out on other consoles. I'll have to check on that. But at least on the Switch and PS4, this is a remaster of a remake on the PSP, which was a remake of the Super Nintendo game. So it's a remaster of a remake of a Super Nintendo game. And so, this is like the third iteration basically of this game. And I know that when the game was remade on the PSP, a lot of fans that played the Super Nintendo game in the West, they had to emulate it because it only came out in Japan. But a lot of fans were upset that Super Nintendo version didn't come to the PSP. A lot of people wanted that version on the PSP, whereas, they just remade the game with Star Ocean 2's graphic style or art aesthetic. We can get into some of the reasons why. We were talking a little bit beforehand. I think Stan's kind of got a point with probably the reasoning behind that. But the Super Nintendo version, it was, for all intents and purposes, I highly recommend you go play it. It was well known for being one of the larger Super Nintendo games. They actually had to have a special chip in the cartridge itself that compressed the data further so that you could have a bigger file size. And it also had additional RAM in the cartridge, so you could have a little bit more high quality lighting effects, and you could have more like lifelike reflections in the water and neat stuff like that. But it was also known for having a fully voice acted opening. Whereas on a Super Nintendo, there was some voiceover stuff, but usually it was like, let's go and stuff like that. It wasn't, the opening is like 2 minutes long of just voice acting, so that was pretty cool for a Super Nintendo game. But, we got a remade version on the PSP. So this version that we are going to talk about today is the remaster of that version. And, we'll get into, is it a bad version? No, it's not. But we'll get into that and then, and see where that takes us. But before we open it up here, and I'll transfer over to Eric and get some of his thoughts, because I know he's played the PSP version. I haven't. I've only played the Super Nintendo version and this version on the Switch. Let's just touch some of the differences here between the remaster and the remake. And then, and I know Eric really wants to touch on the art style, because there's a little thing to be said there. But let me get this screen up here, and we're going to first talk about the difference with the sprites. And let's see, is this good? Okay, so as you can see here on the left, I have that first link up. On the left, that was the original character bus artwork that was used in the PSP version. And then on the right, we have this new art style. So That's one addition that's new. Okay. And then the next thing that we have is um, the actual touch up of the art sprites themselves. So if we go to the RPG site.net picture, you can see at the bottom there's a comparison between on the left and on the right. There's clearly it's been upscaled. So the NPCs are actually a little bit sharper. So that's pretty cool. And then we also have a completely new voice acting or voiceovers. So the original game on the PSP had English and Japanese, and then they redid the Japanese. So there's 3 sets of voice acting that you can choose from now. In addition to that, they did some slight game balancing in the second half of the game where enemies have about 25% more HP. And there's a general drop in the amount of EXP you get from after battles. So that's the basic differences between this game. I mean, it's not a total just straight port like we saw with Nino Kuni on the Switch, where, it was just like the game on the Switch. This, they've gone up and touched it up. They redid some of the sprites a little bit. They changed the artwork. They re-recorded an entire voice acting, an entire game, which there's a lot of voice acting in this game. And then they did some slight rebalancing. So, it's a little bit more than we've seen with like the Final Fantasy remasters, but it's not to the extent that you might see with like the Zodiac Age on Final Fantasy 12, where that's pretty much not the same game. It's got the same story, but it's it's wildly different in terms of gameplay. But Eric, I know that you have played the PSP version and then you've played this version. I don't know if you've played the Super Nintendo version at all, but what are your thoughts thus far? I know you're real early in, but what do you think about this Switch version?
It's a straight port of the PSP version. That's
Despite these differences?
There's very minor differences from the PSP version. Very,
Man,
very minor. There
they
might be
they
there might be some stat balancing, but the differences you will find from the PSP version and this one is very minimal.
I
Uh,
think that I mean, look, they re-recorded all the voice acting. That's not like that's pretty extensive. I mean, I've been asking for years for JRPGs to give me options with the main character, and now I have 3 options. I mean, they didn't have to do that. They could have just ported
They
it straight?
they redid
Japanese
the Japanese, yeah.
Yeah,
and
but
do the
still,
English, so
I don't use the English for that anyways. It's cheesy. I love the new voice acting. I love it. I don't use the PSP one. I don't use the English one. I mean,
I wish they let you just turn it off altogether.
I don't know.
Where's that feature?
Well, it's nice that they did it though, right?
I mean, I almost never choose the Japanese version unless the English version's voice acting is so grating and that awful that it's just painful to the ears to listen to.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to keep it on English, even if it's not the best voice acting ever.
Yeah.
Because for all I know, the Japanese version is much worse,
Mhm.
and I don't know better because I don't speak Japanese. So okay.
Yeah, but I mean, the way I feel about it is a lot of times with English voice acting, it's not very good or it's just cheesy or something like that. And since I don't know Japanese, which I think a lot of people share the same opinion, is since I don't know it, I don't know if it's cheesy or not. So it just sounds better to me. I understand like the criticism of, hey, like it's kind of annoying in battles, but it doesn't necessarily bother me, to be honest. I mean, it
Well,
just doesn't.
the particular issue is that people talk over each other during battle. So you're hearing like 3 people shout things at the same time during the fight,
But here's the thing,
which
I don't know what they're saying, so like it
That makes
doesn't
it
bother
better.
me. I watched Resident Arc, Mike's video on it where he was showing an example and it was in English and they're all like fire wheel, fire wheel. I don't hear that. I just hear like like I don't I don't know what they're saying, so I'm just like, okay, whatever. So I agree with you. Like, it's stupid they don't give you the option to turn it off. But
Yeah, at least during battle is really the only one I want to turn off, and they don't have that feature.
yeah,
The game in general, though, I mean, it being mostly a straight port. Uh, Besides that fact, it's still a good game. It's still a really good remake to the Super Nintendo one. It's even to the point I would even call it a reimagining because they pretty much start from scratch. They use basically Star Ocean 2 as a template
Mhm.
to recreate the first Star Ocean game. And really, in my mind, I've played both. I've played the Super Nintendo version and the PSP version,
hmm
and they're both very good games in their own right.
yeah,
Like there's such different games. Like even the combat's really completely different. Like in the original game, it's similar to Tales on Super Nintendo, where you're running left and right like on a 2D screen and fighting enemies that way. And then this one, it's like Star Ocean 2, where you're running around in a field and hitting monsters instead. It's really, like I said, it's two completely different games. So it's going to come down to taste and if you will like one more than the other.
yeah.
And honestly, in my opinion, I don't think one is better than the other. Like there are advantages and disadvantages. Like I do like the artwork style in the Super Nintendo more, but like the I like the stories better presented and not as rush feeling in the PSP / Switch version. So it's really give or take. It'll come down to personal taste. I,
Right.
don't- I, I don't think one's necessarily better than the other.
Here's one thing I will say, and again, I haven't played the PSP version like on the PSP, right? I've played this now remastered version of that. So basically, I played the PSP version. But what I will say is, I think that from what I've seen, like, there's no real reason to play the PSP version. It's either play the Super Nintendo version or play this version on Switch. I mean,
Oh,
like,
now. Yeah, now that the Switch version is out.
yeah, there's no real reason to play the PSP version. And so for the price for $20, if you haven't played the PSP version like me, right, then I think this is a steal. Like, this is a great game. This is a great
Definitely,
remaster. Yeah. And
$20 is like 100% worth it.
yeah. And if you liked this game on the PSP back in the day, then I would say $20 is not like, it's very reasonable, you know? So
They did a pretty good job upscaling it. I mean, it was already a widescreen game to begin with, the
sure.
remake on PSP. So I can't imagine it was but so hard to upscale it. But you do notice some things here and there that it went uh, um,
It looks,
like there's some places where it doesn't look like you can tell difference between like you and the NPCs or
right.
like in Final Fantasy VIII Remaster where some of the NPCs were like actually part of the scenery and not actual character models.
Yeah. I think,
Um, there's some moments of that in Star Wars, and it's a lot more noticeable than on the PSP version. If you're playing on the handheld mode though, it's not as bad.
yeah.
But you know how it is blown up on the screen. You're going to notice those things a lot more. But it
Yeah.
still looks really good. They still did a great job upscaling it, and then thank God they didn't do like any smoothing effects to the character models. They're the character sprites from before.
Yeah. I think that what you're getting at there was the game has pre-rendered backgrounds like the old Final Fantasy games on the PlayStation, and just like those remasters, they didn't upscale the backgrounds, but they did touch up like the sprites and stuff like that. So the sprites do look sharper than the backgrounds. However, I found that it was less, I don't want to say noticeable because you are right. Like, initially, I played it handheld and I didn't even notice. But once I plugged it on my 4K TV, it was like immediately I noticed, right? But I found it less distracting. And I think the reason for that is because even though the background is not upscaled, like before it was pre-rendered, it was still pixel art, but 3D pixel art. So like the pixel art characters, even though they are, you know, upscaled, like are sharper, it still like blends well with the background. Whereas with the Final Fantasy games, especially Final Fantasy 9, with like the polygonal characters, it just like it just made the backgrounds look really flat. And I think just because the backgrounds here are pixel art, it works a little bit better. And then also, they still have like things like when you walk under the shadow of a tree, like your character will gradually get darker, and then you go out into the sunlight and it gets lighter. So it's like having little things like that kind of like bridges that gap between the background. But I do agree with you. There's certain parts in the game where like it's like, okay, like you obviously did not upscale this background at all, you know. But
Yeah.
like I said, it's more forgiving here, I think, than it is in other games. And you know, I mean, there's a wide variety of expectations with remasters. Sometimes you literally get just a straight port like we got with Alliance Alive, right? Where that came to the Switch and there's no difference. It's the same game, right? Or sometimes you get a remaster like with Final Fantasy 9 on the Switch, and it's actually a worse version than was than the original, right? It has bugs, like the music restarts over and over. You know, there's reports of it crashing and stuff like that. So that's not a very good remaster. So I look at this, I'm like, you know what? Given the fact that I can actually say for $20, this is better than the PSP version, I think, you know, I think that's a sign of a good remaster. So um I
Well, I know you you mentioned earlier that I had opinions about the artwork, and
yeah, I was about
actually
to
I
go to
do.
that. What'd you think?
All right, here's the thing. The new artwork that they have for this game that they redid again with the current Star Ocean art designer, I believe it is. I don't know his name. And I will say this is some gorgeous, well, the new one they put in is gorgeous character artwork. Like these look really damn good.
I
Like
like it better than the original a
It's
yeah,
lot.
significantly better. Yeah.
they're much better
Here, let me
than
get this on the screen.
the ones that they originally put on the PSP in every way. Like so much effort looks like that was put into every character design with careful detail. Now, having said that, I switched back to the original remake's art style immediately. And the reason for that is that the character sprites do not complement at all, almost not at all, the
Yeah, yeah.
the artwork at all. And they didn't do anything to change the sprites or anything
Yeah.
like that to make it look like that they look like their respective new artwork counterpart, which it's way too disjarring for me. I believe the character Ilya is probably the prime example. Her character artwork is based off the Super Nintendo one.
Mm,
And but here's the thing, the remake version, like her character looks absolutely nothing like that. The only similarities they have is that she has blonde hair. But
yeah.
besides that, her character sprite, she wears a I don't even know what it's called. It's like some kind of orange coat that she wears over her with her space cadet suit
Hmm.
behind it. And she does not wear this at all in the new character art.
Yeah.
And on top of this, we have animated cutscenes that are using the PSP versions artwork in that. So you have like this type of artwork and this at the same time, and it's clashing together badly.
Yeah.
So I told myself switching it back to that. I mean, like I'm sorry, I love this artwork, I really do, but I really wish that the developers went an extra mile and just redid the character sprites. I understand the difficulties of that,
Mhm.
but
If
it's
you're
more of a if you're going to make this artwork, you should either go all out with it and make sure it completely works and blends into the game, or not do it at all.
Yeah. Well, it would be more work, right, for them to redo the sprites. However, they completely redid the voice acting. That took a
Right.
lot of work. So, like, was it more work to do that than it would have done to redo the sprites? I don't know, but I imagine, auditioning voice actors and, like, getting them in the studio and, "No, that line sucks, do it again," obviously, like, the director of the game wasn't in the studio, like, they hired someone to, do this for them, but still, like, that must have been expensive, so, I mean, it is a good point. Why didn't they do that if they went through this other, you know, ordeal to do the voice acting? But, I you know, I like the new art style a lot better, and I know, Eric, you said that too. You like the new one, it just doesn't fit, so it's very distracting. But the thing is, I'm still using the new one because I really don't like the old one at
Mhm.
all. Like, it looks terrible to me. So, I'm just dealing with it. And I think part of it, the reason I'm able to deal with it, and this isn't a very good reason, but, I grew up playing, like, RPG Maker games and stuff. Those games, like, they would just find artwork from any game they could to use it in their game, right? So you would have, like, Baldur's Gate profiles with, like, Chrono Trigger artwork, and it did not match at all, right? Like, to me, I'm just like, whatever, like, I've done this before, but at the same time, like, I paid money for this. You think they could, like, have made the character bus at least look like the NPCs? Because it is weird. At first, I had a hard time understanding who was actually talking until I've realized, like, "Oh, this is that person." Okay. It
Yeah.
is weird. It's distracting for sure.
Well,
Yeah,
it,
and it's not going to bother everyone. It just bothers me particularly.
Yeah. Well, and for good reason. I don't think it's something it's kind of baffling why they wouldn't address that because I feel like somebody must have been in the room and said, "Hey, man, it doesn't look like the sprite at all. Like we should that doesn't look like the sprite."
yeah.
But it does look
And
really
then
good.
no one notices. Mm.
Yeah. But they're like, "Yeah, but this looks really cool." Yeah, but it's a different person. But it looks really cool. But anyways, so I just deal with it, but I understand. Um, Stan, you played the PSP version. What did you think of that version?
I did. I liked it. I haven't played the SNES version, so I didn't have anything to compare it to other than Star Ocean 2 because it looks just like Star Ocean 2.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it. Star Ocean 2 is still my favorite game in the series. But this one is probably second overall, I would say. And I've played all of them. So it's a good game. And
You had an interesting theory on why they used the Star Ocean 2 graphic aesthetic when they remade this game for the PSP.
oh right. Well, the game came out early 2000s, I want to say, or mid 2000s or so. I want to say like 2006 or 7, the
Mhm.
PSP version. And at that time, there was only Star Ocean 2 and Star Ocean 3 here in the US. And Star Ocean 2 was by far the more well received game. Like Star Ocean 3 is divisive, I guess, story wise, you could say.
It was
So,
reviewed pretty well for the time. How it holds out in the long run, Star Ocean 3, I think that's where it's divisive amongst people.
yeah. But even back then, there's a plot twist that is kind of people
I
go either way on it. Some
I
people think
personally
it was
like it,
interesting. Yeah.
but like there wasn't such a deep lore of Star Ocean before that. I mean, you had
Well,
the first two games, but they didn't really establish like a full franchise like lore universe. It's not like Star Wars where like if that plot twist was put in Star Wars after like 30 years of development of that world, then like yeah, I can see that. But this is just like a plot twist. I feel like that's pretty insignificant in the grand scale of that series because you can still make games and
Yeah.
just like not not have that be part of it at all.
True. Yeah. It was I just remember it being divisive even at the time. Like
So
when it happened, people were debating it a lot, but in any case, the Star Ocean 2 was kind of the more beloved title, I guess you could say. And so it made sense for them to base the artwork for Star Ocean 1 on Star Ocean 2. Number one, because it allowed them to just reuse a bunch of assets from Star Ocean 2, like enemy designs and uh, menus and things of that nature, right? Which it's a cost thing, right? It's cheaper to do it. And number two, like I said, Star Ocean 2 was the most popular of the series at the time, right? So if you're going to get a bunch of people to play a game that's never been released in the US, why not put a coat of paint on it that looks exactly like the one that they love already, you know?
yeah,
So,
makes sense.
mhm.
Yeah, I mean, especially with it not being released in the West, the first one. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Yep.
If only they had considered emulation. We play all
Yep.
those games anyways. So
Yeah, we do. The more casual audience probably I would bet you that like 10 times the number of people had played Star Ocean 2 compared to number 1 at that point,
mm,
at least,
yeah.
simply because it was released here. You
One
didn't
thing
have
we
to
could
emulate it.
truly agree upon is no matter what we think of the first Star Ocean 4 games, we can all agree that the fifth one was just so awful.
I never even played the fifth one, and I agree it's awful.
Well,
I've just heard that so much. It's just like it has to. I found one guy who said it was not that bad, and that's it.
I
That's the
have just
height.
never played a game that just got so much wrong in a long time.
Yeah, it was pretty bad, and I beat it. I went all the way through. I endured the I
You
endured
are
the torture just to make sure that it didn't somehow get good in the last 5 hours of the game.
you are not a sunshine patriot. That is
Uh,
crazy.
It probably got good when the credits started rolling.
No, not really.
Yeah. Anyways, so there's kind of our thoughts with Star. I really like Star Ocean 4, by the way. I like that game a lot.
I like
Really?
Star Ocean 4. I mean, I like the first 4 games just fine.
Yeah.
A lot of people had a problem with Star Ocean 4, and I
I
see kind
liked
of
it.
more the reason on the 360 version, just because of some technical reasons, and they like redid the UI in a kind of a manner.
Yeah.
But like the PS3 like remaster they did was like I thought was pretty good. It's like it's not out of this world great, but it's like it's a very good serviceable JRPG.
Yeah, I played it all the way to the end, and I felt like, man, I was like, man, that was a good game. I mean, I didn't think it was like life changing. It didn't like define my life that year or something like that. But I was glad I bought it, and I had a good time with it. So I thought it was a good game. So Star Ocean 3, I, mm, you know what it is, man? Like at the beginning of the game, he gets that like black marker on his back, or like that thing that draws on his back, and like I
Yeah,
was like, I don't want to look at this for the rest
it's
of the
so
game.
annoying. Yeah.
And I'm like, why are you still wearing that? Somebody drew on your back. Get a different jacket. Well, what are you doing? And like, I don't know. That got me off on the wrong foot. But anyways, I digress. So those are our thoughts on Star Ocean. We like Star Ocean around here in these parts. And sounds like both me and Eric are in agreement that this is a perfectly good remaster. And for $20, especially if you haven't played the PSP version, it's definitely worth checking out. So highly recommend on that ground. But let's move into some general housekeeping here with the podcast. We want to throw out there that we are media partners with RPGFan.com. So make sure that you are going to their website and checking them out. They have RPG news, game reviews, soundtrack reviews. They got RPG podcasts, other podcasts than ours on there. And then they also have a YouTube channel where they do lots of different reviews and stuff like that. So make sure you go check them out. As far as Archino goes, we've been doing some talking on the side and what we can do to kind of change things just a little bit. And we'll make some of those announcements as we clarify some of those things we want to do as we get closer. But one thing that we do definitely want to start doing more of, at least a little bit, is we want to get back to doing some more game discussions. We kind of took a break with, just getting busy. I was starting a new job. Eric was getting married. Stan joined the podcast, but then right when he joined, he had to move. And, we've had various ups and downs, but we would like to start getting back to doing a little bit more game discussions. So next month in January, we're still figuring out the exact week or how we're going to do it, but we are going to be doing a Crisis Core discussion, full spoilers, the whole thing. And then in February, we're going to do a Final Fantasy VII discussion, the game, right? Full spoilers, just long, nothing but Final Fantasy VII. And then hopefully we're going to do a Final Fantasy VII remake discussion in March. The only thing barring that is if Square Enix delays this game. I don't think they will, with it being, March 3rd, because that's really close to E3 timeframe. It would be really awkward to delay your game past that, because then are you going to, is the game going to appear at E3 because you delayed it? I mean, yeah, it's just, it's weird. So I feel like it has to come out around that time frame. So we'll talk about that for sure. But, yeah, and then we also are going to be keep doing our normal stuff like impressions. So the Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC that's coming out in January, I plan on picking it up. The one that has the Final Fantasy characters in it that we're going to talk about next. I plan on picking that up. So we'll definitely be doing impressions on that for sure, and just giving our thoughts with that. But let's transition to that topic. We have Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC. I did not I basically, once I beat Kingdom Hearts 3, we did our discussion video on it. It was like, okay, mission complete. I'm probably not going to play that ever again. Right? I liked it. I really liked it. I had a lot of fun with it. But I was like, if I ever play this again, it's going to be a very long time. And then I saw this trailer for this DLC, and I'm like, dude, I'm going to buy that. Like, I had lots of complaints with Kingdom Hearts 3, but I still really enjoyed it. But one of my major complaints with Kingdom Hearts 3 was that there was no Final Fantasy stuff in it anymore. And I know they've been kind of phasing that out for a while, but I was very kind of depressed about that. In this new trailer, we see Yuffie, Aerith, and then Leon, which is Squall for people that don't know, right? And so we have some Final Fantasy characters in there. We have some other appearances in there. We have a character that looks like Noctis from Versus 13 at the end, although there was some speculation. Maybe that is him, maybe that isn't him. But he was called Yozora. He was basically Nomura did this whole cameo where you had the different Final Fantasy 15 characters, but it was all Versus 13 style. So it was kind of trolling Tabata, basically.
The game he wanted to make.
Right. I could still do it, guys. Yeah. But anyways, Sora at the end of this trailer is shaking hands with this character. So, I mean, dude, I couldn't believe they did it, but they got me back in. I'm going to get this DLC. But I know there's some other stuff we can go over, but what do you all think? What do you all think about this?
Man, what classic Kingdom Hearts. They throw you a bunch of stuff that you don't get and don't understand, yet you are so excited to play it.
Yeah. Well, I was telling Stan before we started this podcast, because he said he has not played Kingdom Hearts 3 yet. And I said yet like you plan on playing it, but anyways, I was saying that I was telling him that I entirely beat Kingdom Hearts 3. I got always to the end. I saw the ending cutscene, and I don't still really know what happened. And I'm serious. If you've never played any of these games, you could watch the entire ending of the game, and it would not be a spoiler because you wouldn't know what happened, right? But for people that have been really following the games closely, because I haven't played all the games, it's not Kingdom Hearts' fault; it's my fault. But I know for people that are really following the games, some of them were a little unhappy with the way things resolved for certain characters. They felt like it needed a little bit more context. So I think this DLC is also going to try to address some of those issues. But and then obviously there's some new gameplay modes, new keyblades, a new difficulty mode, stuff like that. But Eric, are you buying this thing?
Well, of course I'm buying it. It's got a bunch of new boss fights and everything. Because I mean, Kingdom Hearts 3 has a solid foundation.
Mm-hmm.
It's that like they didn't have anywhere near the amount of content
Peggy.
that Kingdom Hearts 2 did, and not even its final mix iteration. And this is pretty much the final mix content for Kingdom Hearts 3. And it looks like there's gonna be a lot of fun boss fights. Looks like a single one-on-ones, similar to the final mix you got from Kingdom Hearts 2, where it's like fights against the organization. And it looks like this is also doing that, which is really awesome. And from what I saw in the trailer, like you said, it looks like they're adding context to certain scenes of the game that we had questions about. And I think they're trying to address that. I don't think they're going to tell us what's in the black box. Still,
Oh yeah, that was so stupid.
I think that's something that's being left for the next game and a whole new story that they're doing after that.
If you noticed, even if you played a couple Kingdom Hearts games, what Eric just addressed, not a spoiler, because you don't know what he's talking about. But keep going. I'm sorry.
But yeah, that's basically it. I know they mentioned a couple other things. Yeah, okay. So I have a list here. New from RPG site. New scenario episodes with new bosses and scenes. Some battles you can choose between various playable characters. So like we saw in the trailer that there's a boss fight I think you can switch between like Sora and Kairi. And you can you can fight the boss as Kairi instead of Sora.
That's awesome.
The next bullet point is new keyblades and forms via a free patch. So these new keyblades are actually going to be free, and you don't have to buy the DLC for it. A photo mode and a slideshow mode, so more features for the camera that's in the game. And then they're going to add a fast pass mode. It's a form of an easy difficulty that lets you one-shot enemies. All right.
For the people who are just there for the story and nothing else, I guess.
Well, we got YouTube for that, but you know,
Yeah.
if you want to, that's how you want to play it. Okay. Then there's one called Black Mode, a hard difficulty where you choose your HP. So, but you're gonna have some crazy people out there doing like 1 HP critical mode runs.
More power to him. I'm not going to be doing that.
And the last bullet point is English voices for the Japanese version, and Japanese voices for the. If we get Japanese voices for the Western version, that has not been stated. But those are the big bullet points. I like the idea of new keyblades. I don't know if there's gonna be anything better than Ultima Weapon, but
I feel like
already
there
got
can't
that
be.
in the game.
I feel like there can't be. It's the Ultima Weapon. There can't be anything better than the Ultima Weapon unless it's like the Ultima Weapon.
I did hear it. Don't take my word for this. I did hear rumors that they are making adjustments, like you being allowed to turn off the, like the Disney park forms,
Oh,
like
good.
the Disney park ride forms, like you don't, or
like turn it off or
limit them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you were gonna say shorten, and I could go for. I don't know. I don't really want to shorten them because I want to maximize the amount of damage, but I do see where some people felt that it was a little too often that they would have you go through doing that stuff.
Yeah, that was a criticism I made when we reviewed the game early this year.
With Raconius.
Like Kingdom Hearts 3 was way too friendly on allowing you to go between transformations and allowing you to summon those rides, because it made you unstoppable even in proud mode. Now I haven't played critical mode, but I hear critical mode did address a lot of difficulty balancing that fans of the series were more looking for,
Yeah.
and, and better deliver on that. Like you do have to really think and strategize comparatively than when you played those.
If Yeah, I've heard the same thing that critical mode kind of addressed a lot of those issues. I think that's really cool, and there's a part of me that wants to play it in critical mode. I really wish that if they were going to go for the route of turning certain things off, I wish we could turn off the gummy ship parts because I really did not enjoy that part of this game. It just really just, I know it's a very big nod to the original game and like everything like that, but Jesus Christ, man. Like a lot of times I would just want to get to the next world and like I would just get, it would just drag the game out. I felt like way too long. Maybe not get rid of it, but just a quicker route. Maybe I could get like pay like a toll road or something and like just get to the worlds faster. I mean, it was one of my complaints with the game.
It was pretty cool they did an open world gummy ship type thing, but I still ultimately like the Kingdom Hearts 2 gummy ship
Yeah.
a lot more just because it has that really nice Star Fox feeling to it.
Yeah.
And I am a major fan of Star Fox games,
See,
so
with
it felt really nice.
Kingdom Hearts 3, like they give you this gummy ship and the difficulty is that they purposely made it handle like really badly. And then like you're supposed to, throughout the game buy new parts and upgrade it and everything like that. And it, eventually it can move faster. You can get better handling and everything on it. But I was just like, man, you just made something that drives like crap and is frustrating to use for like half the game until it finally gets to the point where like, okay, now I can actually, fly it around like a normal person. Whereas I think with Kingdom Hearts 2, it was just fun, you know.
Mm.
So I
Yeah,
probably just pissed off like half the Kingdom Hearts community, but anyways,
actually, it's a pretty popular opinion that the gummy ships are not the most are not the best part of the game. Now, there's some people who are really creative between these three games and made some like pretty awesome, devastating gummy ships are really funny ones. Like now, I will say Kingdom Hearts 3 definitely had the funniest gummy ship designs. There was one that was just straight out in the shape of a handgun with like Donald Duck's hand on the trigger. Like it looked so great, and it just flew around like a gun and just started shooting. I was like, "This is I like this by far wins the best design." So
yeah,
there is a lot of room of creativity. I so it's really cool in that aspect. It's personally not my thing. I'm not a very creative person, unfortunately. So I just kind of go in. I want them to be creative for me,
yeah,
and then so that's where I kind of like the Kingdom Hearts 2 one a lot more.
yeah. But anyways, so this game's supposed to come out on January 23rd on the PS4, and then I think like a month later on the Xbox, which is kind of strange, but cool, I guess, right? But
I don't get that. I don't get why they're like
I don't know,
Well, when is the game coming to Xbox? Or
February 25th, I think.
yeah, February 25th.
So
So over a month after.
the only
They
thing I can think is the 7 remake's not coming to Xbox immediately, but it is coming to uh obviously PS4 around that time. So I wonder
Mhm.
if they're thinking like, well, maybe this will tide over some of our fans on the Xbox. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of because it's not like I can't imagine that they like just need an extra month to make the Xbox version run well, unless it's some kind of agreement they have with Sony or something. I don't know.
maybe.
I would think just regardless, they would just simultaneously release it.
I mean, it's DLC. It's not like it's like a main game.
Yeah, it's a big deal for like Kingdom Hearts fans. So I'm sure the mass majority of hardcore Kingdom Hearts players are on the PS4.
Yeah,
But
I could just
just saying that, like,
I could
it,
just see Microsoft like, oh come on, like it's DLC. Just give it to us on launch day. It's DLC. Do we have to wait a month? It's just because they just get boned with releases all the time. So, but I'm sorry, Eric. What were you saying?
oh, I didn't say anything else.
Oh, okay, Cool.
But I don't know how much more there is to say. Like you said, we got Final Fantasy characters back,
They're
which is really cool. I don't think they have any significant appearance except being like in the cutscene. I could be wrong, but all we see is Squall, Yuffie, and Eris talking to Riku in the cutscene here.
So here's the deal, though. There was another trailer that was found on Square Enix's YouTube page that was unlisted, that has not been seen yet. And it started like someone found it, and then like all sorts of websites like IGN started sharing it. And in that trailer, apparently it went a little bit more detail with the gameplay, but it showed even more like scenes with those Final Fantasy characters. And then Square like removed the trailer because it seemed like it was a trailer that would come out like, like a week before the DLC came out. So I wonder how extensive these Final Fantasy characters are going to be in the DLC. Is it going to be just a scene or two? Or because it seems like in the trailer, like they're kind of like they're going to play a main role. But, that could just be Nomura trolling us like he likes to do.
Like they kind of look like they made these character models really fast because they don't really have. I mean, at least in this trailer, they don't have any strong animations. I mean, I could be wrong. They could have put a lot more effort into it, maybe.
Yeah.
But it kind of looks like they're like they quickly put something together to resolve the. Oh, we don't have any Final Fantasy characters in this game.
Maybe they got the Final Fantasy VIII remaster team to work on this.
Here's the thing, though. Even if you add these characters in, which is cool, it's like
Yeah.
I'm not going to complain about that. But the cool thing about between Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2 is that they brought new Final Fantasy characters in. Like you got the Gull Wings, you got I mean you kind of got like you got Tifa. Tifa was in the game
Mhm.
also. And then eventually like in other Kingdom Hearts games, we got characters like Zack was at the Olympus Coliseum, and it was cool to see new characters like that. So when the third game was coming out, I was expecting to see characters from like Final Fantasy 13 and 15 probably make an appearance in some way. Like even though we have, you know, those are controversial games that
Yeah.
But they've
among
marketed them,
people,
right?
Well,
they're very marketable characters. Like yeah, exactly. Like Stan said,
They've
like they're
put them
very
in
marketable characters.
they've put them in the Dissidia games, right? So you would think that they would
being
find
Kingdom
their way
Hearts.
into a Kingdom Hearts game as well.
Well,
But it hasn't happened yet.
the lore behind at least 15, well 13 as well, but definitely 15, I think would really work. I mean, given that, a lot Noctis is at least in the original lore, he was supposed to have a trouble sleeping. He was always in the dream world. When he's in the crystal, he was in the dream world. He's the king of insomnia, right? And part of Kingdom Hearts is it kind of emphasizes this idea that um he's sleeping basically, or like I don't know, he's in some other world inside of a dream, inside of a heart, inside of a dream. But the ideas are very similar, which makes sense because both concepts were kind of developed by the same person. But if they wanted to tie 15 in, at least like they could easily, I think. Which
You could have done something like the Ratatouille restaurant could have been owned by Ignis.
yeah, that would have worked
And
easily.
like Ignis is the one that like introduces you to that instead of
Dude, the first scene, he's just like, "That's it. I found a new recipe." And then he turns around and he's like, "Oh, Sora."
yeah, and then you could have had like Lightning be part of like a new character that appears with like for the Hollow Bastion restoration committee or something like that.
Mhm.
Or she's like a loner in some other Disney world or something like that. Like Lightning is a very, very marketable character. Like she may not be that popular here in the West, but Japan loves her.
I didn't even like 13, and I think it would have been cool if Lightning was in Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, it's like these characters are cool conceptually. I think at least it was just their execution in the games. I think that are, you know,
Yeah,
are questionable. But like these characters have like solid foundations
yeah,
that would work in Kingdom Hearts just fine.
yeah.
But I don't know. That's just a missed opportunity. You can't really. It's just speaking in hindsight, though.
Yeah. Well, it just makes me wonder though, with that final scene in the trailer that looks like the Yozora character to me, anyways. If that ends up being who this character is, which is based on the Versus 13 Noctis, right? Because they even in the game has that trailer where it's very clearly Ignis and Noctis and the rest of the gang, but in Kingdom Hearts style aesthetic.
Mhm.
If this ends up being that character, I'm very curious how they're going to make that work and what the plot line is going to be. Because, I mean, at least in the 2 or 3 scenes that we got with that world in Kingdom Hearts 3, it was very similar to 15, but it was definitely like they were definitely making points to not make it exactly the same thing. So, that I think the thing with this DLC is that I can sum this up as for me anyways is just like it piqued my interest. I was not interested in any DLC with Kingdom Hearts 3, and this has piqued my interest definitely. So,
I think this DLC is going to make Kingdom Hearts 3 a much better game than it was.
yeah.
Like Kingdom Hearts 3 was already a good game. Like there were some parts of it I had some heavy criticism on, like story wise. I think I probably had the heaviest criticism in some aspects of the combat and lack of super bosses. And it looks like this DLC wants to address all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to me, it's like it comes off the same as the final mixes did for Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. So in that aspect, I welcome it with open arms.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited. I can't wait. I can't wait to just be busy with games. I already am, but this is going to be January is going to be another crazy year because we got Trials of Mana, I think, coming out around that time too. And this DLC is going to come out. I don't know how long this is. Am I going to have to?
Mana's April, isn't
Is
it?
it? I thought it was January.
No, I think it's April.
Let me look
Crystal
this up.
Chronicles is in January.
Oh, maybe that's what I was
That's
thinking
what it
of.
is.
Let me look up this Trials of Mana remake. Um, yeah, you're right. April 24th.
Yeah. So you're
Oh,
good.
perfect. I can
That's
play
good
that.
timing,
We can still
right?
do Crisis Core. We can still talk about that.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, so I think
A whole month before the FF7 remake on top of that.
Yep.
dude, with those Final Fantasy characters in Kingdom Hearts, I'm gonna be all Final Fantasied up by the time that thing comes out.
Yep.
I'll be
Just a side note,
yeah.
I don't know if it'll happen. Chances are it won't.
Okay.
But I would really love it if they had another Sephiroth fight in Kingdom Hearts 3. Just one more. Just round it all up, finish the story that they started in Kingdom Hearts 2. Even if it's not good, just give Cloud a resolution
Yeah.
Oh,
that even though it's really dumb that Sephiroth is the darkness within him, but it's Kingdom Hearts, it's not canon. It's just reusing the characters.
That's
you
an
know,
interesting idea though, because given the DLC's coming out so close to the remake, I wonder if they're gonna try to if that's gonna be a reveal that's hidden or something like that, that Cloud is in this DLC, because that would
mhm.
be a big promotional option for them, given the remake's coming out a month afterwards. Wouldn't be unreasonable,
Well, we know that Aerith is going to be in there, right?
right?
That's confirmed in this trailer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I wonder who's going to be doing her voice. Is it going to be
Well, we heard like
the
one line
remake?
of
Is it
dialogue,
going to be
but
the remake voice actor or somebody else?
I don't know.
Let me listen to her. Let me see if I can. Let me see if it's familiar to me now, because I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
I was more thinking like, oh crap, there's Aerith.
I
Let me
just
see
thought of it now. Like,
if I can.
yeah, if they put Sephiroth and Cloud in there to have another battle, and Aerith is in there, like, which voice
Then
actors
he
will they
must
use?
It's
still be with
definitely a
us.
different voice actor from Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah, this one's
Yeah.
definitely. Well, I don't know, but this one sounds very. From the trailer, it sounds very like little girl compared to. I think the remake one sounds a little bit more mature. She still tries to put that little sugar on it to make it sound kind of like, but it sounds like it's like at least late teens, Whereas this one sounds like
Don't
it's
remember him.
like trying to be like 14, maybe. I don't know.
I
Then
can't
he must
really
still.
tell.
Yeah.
if this is the new voice actress for remake, but what I am for sure is that this is not the one from
Kingdom Hearts 2.
Kingdom Hearts 2. This is and definitely not Mandy Moore,
Yeah.
Well,
unless Mandy Moore's voice has significantly changed over the years.
yeah.
I guess we'll find out soon.
Yeah. Anyways, so very, very excited to pick this up and play it. Hopefully they have some kind of, I really hope this is some kind of option to play the game. Like, I just want to play the DLC. I don't want to have to replay the entire game again just to get to this content. Hopefully there's some way I can play it without doing that. But if I have to replay the entire game, I will. So thought I'd throw that out there. But anyways, so we have some other news as well we want to get to. Just some quick news. So we got Eric's favorite game series of all time, The Legend of Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel 3, is coming to Switch. So that's kind of cool.
I'm so excited about the game that I can't even find the right words to say. So I'm just gonna let Stan just take over and just give his thoughts about it.
Yeah, Stan, why should we be excited to play this on the Switch?
Well, I would be very excited about it too. However, I haven't even played Trails of Cold Steel 2 yet. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if I had, I probably would have gotten Trails of Cold Steel 3
From
when
what
it
I've
came out on
from
PS4. But I've only played Trails in the Sky, the first game,
okay.
of which there are 3,
Hmm.
and Trails of Cold Steel 1, the first one, of which now there are 4. 3 in the US and 4, I think, has
That's so
already come
confusing.
out or is coming out shortly in Japan. So
That's so confusing. Yeah, from
Oh
what
no,
I've
Eric, it's a series you totally need to get into. You just gotta play 7 games.
it's like I guess if I could make an analogy with, like, if you guys are familiar with the Marvel movies, you know how they have like Thor and Captain America and what's the other one? Iron Man, right?
right.
And they kind of have their own series of movies,
Okay.
right? But at some point, like
They all
maybe
get
halfway
together.
through all those, if you haven't seen the like all of them up to that point, like the first Avengers film or whatever, you're kind of missing out, right, by not having seen the previous ones. From what I
Hmm.
understand, Trails of Cold Steel 3 is that point. It's where like the characters from all the other series kind of come together.
Oh,
So
interesting.
that's why I haven't played number 2 or number 3 yet. I kind of want to even want to go back and play Trails in the Sky, the first one, because I played it probably more than 10 years ago now at this point. So
Yeah. It's on my bucket list to get through these games. I think from a like a business strategy, like this is such a ballsy thing to do for your game franchise to have such a difficult barrier to entry, right? The fact that like I want to get excited for Trails of Cold Steel 3, but I have to play like all these other games to get into it. But
yeah.
also that's the reason why people really like them because like the
Hmm.
story has gotten so I won't say complicated, but they've been through this on such a long journey with these characters and the fact that they're coming together and stuff in this game, and there's
Yeah.
a fourth one in Japan already. Like, I mean, that's cool, man. I think that's really really cool.
Yeah,
So
it is cool thing so that if you've played all the others, like you have the investment and it feels probably like the payoff is stronger,
yeah,
right? As you keep going and the story kind of builds on itself.
right.
But I think for people who are like, man, I can't get into I'm way behind. I can't play, 5, 6 games just to play the next one. They have their other series of games, the ease games, where you can pick up any ease game and play it and not be lost.
Is the
Um,
story in those games similarly told as it is in the Legend of Heroes? Like, is it like the same style of storytelling, or is it different?
no, it's an they're action RPGs, So it's a lot more snappy, like onto the next plot point. There's still characters, and it's a JRPG.
Is it beneficial to play the Yeast games in order? Like, do they indirectly tie with each other in some way?
That I'm not sure. I've only played Ys 4. I've only played one of them,
Okay.
the version on the PS Vita. But I picked it up and played it, and even though it's the fourth game, I wasn't lost at all. Um, Essentially, the main hero, Adol, is in all the games, and he just kind of at the start of every new game, it's like Adol traveled to a new region, you know, because he's like an explorer, an adventurer,
Mm-hmm.
and so he travels to a new region, and that's why you have a new map with new characters, new dungeons, and it just starts over,
Yeah.
essentially.
Actually, something that really deters me from the Trails series in particular is not really the games themselves as much, because I kind of think of myself in my head, okay, maybe I can just track through this and try to see what the fascination is with people, even though I didn't really have that great of a time when I first played it. It's really the idea that there's a lot of I heard still a lot of games in Japan they could localize and bring over, and when they do decide to localize something, it takes forever for it to
Yeah,
come stateside. So it's like something you really got to dedicate yourself to, like to really enjoy it, because it seems like they seem to be more open about it now, but there seems to be, from since the PSP days, a lot of reluctance to bring these games over, which can
yeah,
be like then like I don't want to get so invested in something. Then it turns out, oh, this game that's essential to the story is not coming to the US, and I'll be like, I already dealt with this with Dragon Quest.
Yeah.
yeah. It's pretty much in the same boat where so far, not the whole series hasn't been officially localized here. The two middle games have a big fan effort to patch in a English translation for them, which I think is complete or very close to being complete. But
Interesting.
yeah, so I was also kind of waiting on those,
Yeah.
to be done so I could play the games in English.
Well, the fact that Trails of Cold Steel 3 is coming to Switch in the West, I think is really cool. Spring 2020. So it seems like they're trying to direct their attention a little bit more to the West, because I saw in the same announcement that the Falcon president said for the Yeast series that he also wanted to get Yeast 8 on the Switch as well at some point. That's a top priority for him. So
I think that was
You say it is on the Switch.
I think that was 9. He probably
really,
meant to say 9, or maybe
oh,
the
okay,
source was wrong. Yeah, because Ys 8 is on the Switch, but 9 is
oh,
exclusive to
well,
PS4 at the
maybe
moment.
he doesn't know what's going on.
The
They're like,
present.
sir, we already did that, and he's like, oh,
You know what's funny
fantastic.
about him is Falcom is not a huge company, right? So it's a little more believable. But he started off as a fan site owner, like of old Falcom games. Like he ran a website that was just like a fan site,
And now
and
he's the president.
he eventually became president of the company. Yeah, you guys like living the dream, right?
That's crazy. Like
Yeah.
what? Like that's like what if like Final Fantasy president became like the president of Square Enix? Like, like what
Yeah.
credentials do you have to run this business? Make some good
Yeah.
YouTube videos. I mean, I don't know.
The man who made the Sephiroth fan site, like all love for Sephiroth, just like little glitter drawings of him and everything. Like, this is now the president of Square Enix.
Yep.
Well, it might be an improvement. I don't know. Um. Anyways,
It is a little more believable because Falcom is not like a huge
like
company. Yeah.
$1 billion company. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, it's cool that it's coming to the Switch. Probably will not play it on the Switch just for the various reasons. At least when it comes out, because there's a big hurdle for me to climb. But I think it is really cool. In other news, we have Crosscode. We have an update on the console port. If you remember, this is the indie PC game that we've been talking so much about, and
Switch port win.
Yeah, but I mean, it's on the
Mhm.
PC right now, and it's such a good action game. The art aesthetic is amazing. The music's awesome. Um, and it's just like we've all wanted a Switch port for a very long time. Remember, we talked about when the mate lead developer said that, this game will come to the Switch when I think hedgehogs fly. And then Nintendo had a trailer with hedgehogs flying because they
Yeah.
somehow they got it to come, at least announced to come to the Switch. So this game's supposed to come to the PS4, Xbox, and Switch. It was supposed to come like right around this time, late 2019, but still kind of silenced. They're still updating the PC version with like additional features, like a new game plus and stuff like that. But um, it
Yeah,
got
basically the in-house team are making the DLC, and they handed the porting job to a third-party company.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that company has kind of spoken out because there's been a lot of questions from fans wanting to know what's the deal with the Switch port or the PS4 port or whatever. And they said, hey, this is taking longer than expected because the game was coded in HTML5, which is cool on PC because you can go to their website and play a demo of the game in the browser without even having to download it. It's really cool in that regard, but um, certain consoles, apparently that's a security feature that they won't allow on the hardware because it makes it very easy to hack the hardware. So they
Mm.
have to use an interpreter to, uh, just like the name suggests, interpret the code into something the hardware will allow, which if you've ever tried to emulate anything, you'll know that um, it's pretty intensive on the hardware, and it can slow the game down, and they have to do a lot of manual finesse to really get the game to operate how they want it. And their goal is to have it run as buttery smooth as it does in the PC. It's not like a particularly resource intensive game, but it is apparently it was having frame rate problems and stuff, so they didn't want to release it and get a bunch of bad press. So they're working on it. Apparently, they have an Xbox version right now that's basically done. They're still ironing out some like issues, putting in the new game plus stuff like that. But they feel like now that they have the Xbox version kind of sorted out to where it runs at 60 frames per second, etc., um, that getting it to the PS4 and Switch with the same quality is going to be much easier now that they've worked a lot of those issues out. So they're looking at a 2020 release date. We don't know what part of 2020, but I'm really looking forward to this. I've been checking nonstop.
Didn't you say that you went onto their forums or their Reddit and would ask sometimes?
Yeah, I go on their
Like,
Discord server and
oh, the Discord. Yeah.
yeah, I would ask because you can speak with some of the developers. I mean, they don't always respond, but I
Mhm.
just went in there once recently and I was like, hey, it's like September and you guys said late 2019. Any news on this Switch port? And all I got was it's coming. And I was
Oh.
like, okay, well, or something like that. And I was just like, well, I guess you probably get this all the time, and this is
Yep.
annoying, but
That's what I was thinking. They're like, okay, somebody call up this article, right? Nintendo Insider, right? Or and we're
Uh,
getting too many questions about our
our,
Switch port, so let's get
we're
an
not even
article out there and answer all the questions, right?
I
we're not.
joined their Discord server, but I never asked because I feel like if they really did have something to share, then they would probably already have posted it.
Yeah.
Come out and say it. Yeah.
Well, it would have
Yeah.
been cool if like because I do see the developers they will talk with the fan base on there and like they actually like communicate with them and talk with them about like different RPGs that they like and stuff like that, which is really cool. So I thought maybe, sometimes you get the inside scoop just talking to them. So I thought maybe they might not tell me a release date, but they might tell me like, oh, it's going really well or something like that. And I could take that as like, all right, it's still on track, but
Hmm.
Eric's got a point though. If they wanted us to know, they would have told us. So,
They're not going to tell some random person that just joined the Discord.
well,
Me, like they'll be like, "Switchport when?" Like, oh well, now that you bring it up, we do have something to share.
yeah,
It's
well,
like, no, I'm
Eric,
sure.
why are you killing my 4chan career?
Mhm.
Be like, I learned this from talking with the developer, you know. Gosh, he's such a
Phoenix
Debbie
Edge
Downer.
got the latest scoop of crosscode.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyways, so there's that.
I'm predicting mid-year 2020 it'll probably come out.
Mid-year 2020.
Just
Like,
mostly just because they said they want to release all 3 console ports at the same time.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
maybe if they were doing it separate, they would release probably the PS4, Xbox like earlier in the year, then Switch like mid-year. But if
Well,
it's all 3 at the same time, then I think it's just mid-year
yeah, I
2020.
think the Switch is going to be the most appealing version for a lot of people. So, I mean, at the very least, they would want to wait until that version's good to go because I don't know. I think that would just might hurt sales actually if they put a PS4 version out and then they like waited like 5 months and did like I don't know. I agree. Mid-year sounds like a good time, but anyways, so we have a Discord question from Valvedrex who asks, how would you design difficulty modes and a turn-based RPG without making winning determined by more grinding on higher difficulties? Now, I realize the term being used here is difficulty modes. So I'm assuming they mean like easy, normal, hard, but like how are you going to make that difficulty more difficult, right? Without just making it HP sponges or like like
Oh,
Valdrick
I
said.
know. I know. What
What's
I
that?
would do is I wouldn't put them in, period. I wouldn't
What?
put those difficulty modes in at all. What I would do is that I would design the difficulty based around what you do in the game. So, like, say for instance, there's a really hard boss in this cave that you have to beat to progress the story. Now, your choices are you can either go straight to him and try to fight him with only what you have, or and he's going to be really difficult and you got to be extremely strategic to take him down. Now, you can either, to make this easier, you can go out of your way and go to the forest that's in the same area and find this armor or weapon that will give you a great advantage of the boss fight, and it'll make him easier,
Hmm.
or and he'll make it much easier. Or you can find not only the weapon from the forest, but you can go to the mountain and find this blacksmith who can make um like much better gear for you, and then you can get that and then come back and take on the monster that's in the cave, and he'll be a lot easier. So in that way you have created your own difficulty by deciding how you want to approach it. It's kind of like how I see it in Zelda Breath of the Wild. You can go straight to Ganon if you want, but it'll be extremely hard and he will kill you unless you're a speedrunner. But if you go around, collect more hearts, get more stamina, defeat like the 4 beasts, and upgrade like the best armor in the game, Ganon's a pushover. So I really think that if you want to make a really good balanced game, I think it's one where you need to give the players the choice of how they want to approach it, and that will determine how much easier or harder it is. And another good example is actually Metal Gear Solid 5. And they took difficulty modes out of that game, but they gave you so many options on how to approach something. Like there's this base that you need to sneak in and save someone and get them out. And your choices are you can either sneak in and not get detected, which is very hard to do, or your second choice is you can try to go in guns blazing, but you need to be really skilled at the game to get through.
Hmm.
Or you can take about a half hour to an hour more of your time to go out in the area and search for the this this truck that has a missile launcher on it, and you take it and you drive that truck back after you sneak in that base and grab that, and you can take that missile launcher and kill almost every person at that base. Like it's much more fun when you create your own difficulty, and it opens up conversations with people. Like, how did you kill that monster in the cave? It's like, oh well, I tried going straight through him at first, but he killed me very easily because I didn't think about what to do. So I decided to go up to the forest and get the weapon and armor, and go to the blacksmith in the mountain and find this crafted gear. And when I went back to the giant, he was so much easier. And then another person will say, yeah, well, I just took the time to optimize my party setup, and I was able to take down the giant without having to do those two things. So that's how I look at difficulty, is when you give player choice within the game instead of just slapping a button that says easy, normal, or hard.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you. I mean, it's really ultimately like, let me try to decide how to approach this boss or obstacle and have multiple ways to win. I mean, yeah, you can do things that make it more difficult, right? Like, oh, on the third turn, every turn they're going to use an ice attack, and like try to like have like a strategy that way. But I think it's much more fun to have multiple ways to approach the same enemy. But
Mhm.
Stan, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah. Eric touched on it a little bit with his cave example, where he said like you can go get better equipment, and that's kind of what I was thinking for like a RPG specifically
Mhm.
difficulty. Um, if you don't want people to just grind to overcome the higher difficulty, like whether that be a mode or just like a difficult boss that's in the normal mode, you kind of have to make grinding not worth it, right? And so the example I'm thinking of, although it's not a turn-based RPG, is Secret of Mana, right?
Right.
In Secret of Mana, the majority of the player's strength, like making their character stronger, comes through from the weapons and equipment that's available, like the stronger equipment becoming available, and the magic and leveling up the magic. And those things are like all capped until you in continue the story. Basically, like every boss you defeat gives you a different orb for your weapon, and then you can forge the weapon, and only then does the weapon like jump up another level, and you can start like getting proficiency in that weapon, like to reach the next level.
Yeah.
Same with the magic. Like you have to reach a certain point in the story, you beat a certain boss, then you go to a temple, and the temple like unlocks the next orb essentially for the magic, and now the magic can go from level 3 to level 4. But if you're at the cap, like at level 3, and you keep using the magic, you're not gaining any experience for it, because like all the magic and all the weapons have their own experience counter for the characters. So that's one way you can do it, is essentially you just cap all the things that make the characters stronger to prevent players from just overcoming any challenge by grinding low level enemies. Um,
See, go ahead. I'm sorry. Continue your thought.
well, I was just going to say another example is like Final Fantasy 12 with the addition of the level 1 mode that they added in the remaster, where your characters are all stuck at level 1.
So there's no level up.
Yeah, so you get no benefit for grinding other than more license points, right? You can just farm tons of license points if you want, which there is like stat bonuses you can get on the license grids. So in that aspect, you can kind of still grind a little bit, but the weapons and the magic that you can get is you have to purchase it at a certain point in the story, right?
Right.
So you can't just you can't just go out in the desert and grind the wolves for 20 hours and end up with like the strongest magic, right? Because you have to unlock it on the license grid and you also have to purchase it in the store. So,
Yeah. I mean, I'm with both of you on this. Like, I think that like these are all like exactly how I would approach it. Um, but maybe the only thing that I would like take a minor disagreement with is, um, because I'm such a big believer in player choice. I mean, if the player will once, and I know the question is, how do you make it so you can't grind on higher difficulties and win? But to me, I'm like, if I spend 7 hours grinding, let me beat the boss. That's the way I wanted to do it. And like, it took a lot of effort to play, spend 7 hours grinding in a circle, right? I mean,
Right.
like, there should be a reward from that for that. I hate when games just level up with you because it's just annoying. Like you you're penalizing me with random encounters and everything like that. So,
I can
I
see it I can see it both ways. Like, I don't know. The developer though wants you to um, have a certain set of skills and knowledge, like for each boss, right? If they've scaled the difficulty well, right? Like in a game like Chrono Trigger, for example. Um, there's all kinds of examples. Like immediately after you get magic in that game, you go to a cave, and the only way to beat the boss is to use the magic that you learned, right? He's weak to
right.
magic. It doesn't take any damage from physical attacks. If you could just not get it, like not understand what you had to do, and it's a simple game, so it's not a great example, but if you could just not get it and instead grind, for whatever 10 hours and then go into the cave and beat the monster with your physical attacks, then if you're the developer, you would be like, like I failed. We're guiding the player to kind of use
Yeah.
magic at this point, right?
See,
If
And then
your design intention is to grind to get past, then I find that a very lazy
yeah,
way of progressing through your game.
I think with the right way to approach it is let people play the game the way they want to play. But I think that I like when there's a little bit of a thought experiment involved, like we have in Undertale, where, yeah, you can grind your way through that game and you can beat the game that way if you want, but you're going to get a specific experience tailored to that strategy. And,
mhm,
but if you want to beat the game and get a different type of experience, you're still going to have to rely on not only your ability to, receive hits and everything like that, but you're also going to have to rely on like all these various different mini games and your timing and your ability to negotiate with the enemy and things like that. I mean, the idea that you can approach the game in so many different ways. You can choose to only kill the bosses if you want, or only kill the evil people, or you can do a total pacifist run and get through the
right.
game that way. I mean, having multiple options, I think, is really the focus. And if somebody grinds, like I said, for 10 hours or however long, I mean, yeah, okay, like they are not learning the game the way you intended, but I think that having different reward tiers or different types of rewards for how you beat the game or beat a boss, I think is probably a good way to approach it too, you know?
I
Yeah, I
agree.
mean, I believe that. I mean, I believe in easier modes for people. I mean, there's people with certain skill who prefer certain skill levels, and I'm fine with that. Just the thing is, I still like my idea, but at the same time, the developers would need to uh, let the players know that there is another way. Like, don't be too vague with them. Don't be like,
Mhm.
don't make the player put like too much effort in trying to figure out that there's another way. Kind of clearly show the signs to people like there is another way. You're going to have to put a little more effort, but it will be there for you, and uh,
Satisfying.
it'll be a more casual experience for you. You won't have to stress out too much if you decide to take this path and complete this quest first before you complete this.
That's the thing. Okay, so like exactly. So okay, you can sit there and grind in a circle till your heart's content and be level 99, but what did you miss from not doing what like you said, go to a cave, get the axe or whatever, like complete this quest, that quest. There should be certain story consequences for the fact that you skipped that
Ooh.
to
People won't like that though if it changes
But
the
but don't
ending or
make
the
it
story too
bad.
much, right?
Don't make it bad. Just,
Mm.
it should be a natural consequence. Like Undertale, the fact that you didn't do a pacifist run, it makes perfect sense why you didn't get the ending that like the pacifist people got because you killed them. Like you killed people. Like
Right.
like they're not alive anymore. Like you killed them. Like so
Hmm.
I mean I like what people would you meet during the alternate route or what would happen? There should be an experience that you're missing because you didn't do what the game intended to. I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe there's limits to the way you want to do it. Sometimes with like open world games where it's too open, I get almost uh, I get anxiety because I'm afraid to make decisions without looking it up. Because I don't want to make a wrong decision. So I think Eric's right. The game needs to have some way of telling you, hey, there's a way to do it. This is how you do it. But
Right.
Yeah,
make
and
it
in terms of the grinding thing, I think if someone decided they wanted to do that option, I think the game just needs to clearly establish early, like very early in the game, that doing questing and going out of your way to find stuff and explore is much more beneficial than sitting in one spot and grinding all day. Like, give a good amount of EXP for a quest, and the player will tell themselves, "Oof, I much rather do this than simply grinding." Because, like, FF14 in particular, you could technically just kill monsters out in the field all day,
that'll take
and
forever.
it will take forever.
Hmm.
But the quests that are offered while you're going through the main scenario and the amount, and they tell you everything you can do to alternative means to level up. There's so many options for you to pick from, and some people prefer one or the other, and you can do it, and it's perfectly fine. The only thing that's mandatory is going through the main scenario quest. But
That's a perfect example. I mean, the game lets you just grind if you want to, but it incentivizes you to play the game the way they want you to play it to such a degree that it's almost absurd for you to sit there and just be like, "Well, I'm going to go in this field and I'm just going to run around and attack stuff." Like that'll work for like the first couple of levels, but after that, that's not going to work. Like you're going to get way more experience points from, doing the quests and teaming up with people and doing dungeons and stuff like that.
yeah, it's like early day World of Warcraft also. It's like, do you want to just sit in the same forest and kill the same level 1 boars all day, or do you want to actually explore the world and do quests and get enriched in the lore? Like, it's a
Yeah.
pretty clear choice. Like, you're kind of being a masochist by just sitting in the same forest and just killing the same pig over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. And
Right.
I think the key here also is just if it is turn based, for the love of God, do not have random encounters. If you're not gonna if you're not gonna incentivize me to grind, do not have random encounters. Because why am I doing this? Stop doing that, Um
Hmm.
things like that. Like just I think just approaching it with a 2019 mindset of what is the gaming loop that I want to create here, and then just incentivize it, like Eric brought up with Final Fantasy 14. But I think
Yeah.
that's a good way to
I
approach it.
I think I'm mostly with you guys in that on a normal difficulty, you want your difficulty to be like more dynamic, right? Give the player different options to overcome each challenge. But if a higher difficulty is in the game, like there's an actual hard mode that you can play, like a new game. A lot of games do this with like a new game plus, and you can play much harder enemies like through the whole game. In that case, you've went ahead and already implemented a hard mode. When you get to that point, I'm kind of in favor of like make certain things that you could do in the normal mode just like not viable, like grinding, for instance. Like just take away the reward for grinding and getting levels because it's supposed to be a harder difficulty, right? It should require some kind of mastery of the other game's systems. You shouldn't be able to bypass it just by spending 20 hours grinding on hard mode if you didn't need to do that on normal, to overcome it.
Yeah.
So like I said with the FF12 example, right? FF12 is not too hard of a game. the original version was harder, but this newer version is easier. With
Easy. Yeah.
two license boards, and but the enemies are not really rebalanced for that. But if you're gonna have a hard mode for that game, and now you are stuck at level 1, it's really asking you, like, do you have kind of mastery over the weapons and like what kind of damage the types all the weapons do, and do you really know what you're doing, like on the license board, like planning ahead, right? And what kind of characters you're going to build. Those are questions that, while they're important in the normal difficulty, they're not required, right? You can pretty much brute force your way through that
Honestly,
game,
for
you
that,
know.
that game is a good example. And I remember when uh, Mike from Resident Arc, there was a period of time where he had only played like 2 hours of Final Fantasy 12, right? And he was streaming it, and I was on there, and I'm a patron for his channel because I really enjoy it. And I got to play the entire Final Fantasy 12 with him. We were like live streaming it like 50 hours. You can still probably find it on the channel somewhere, but I remember he made the exact observation with the original game. This was before the Zodiac Age came out, that he really liked the battle system and like the license board, but he was like, they should have got rid of the leveling up, because
Yeah.
it just gives you more HP and gives you more of an incentive to just not strategize, because when you keep getting these HP upgrades, you're just eventually it doesn't matter if you play the game the way it needs to be played. So I think we're on to something here. It's all about the way you incentivize the player. Don't restrict options, but just incentivize, the way you want it to be played. So
Yeah, exactly. Like, once you've put in a higher difficulty mode, in my opinion, I think it's okay to, like I said, make certain things, like grinding, for instance, just reward you very little, or just make it not viable altogether. Like, it's not a method you can take to overcome the challenge.
yeah. So anyways,
We do have a comment from the Z Killer in here, and he says, "Not sure if y'all know this, but it's just been revealed that FF7 Remake is exclusive for 1 year till March 3rd, 2021."
I did not know this. I wonder if this is
Hmm.
something that just came out this week. That's crazy. Makes
Nope.
sense though, I guess. I mean, they said it coming first to the PlayStation 4, so I suspect,
PC version, probably.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's going to come to the Xbox versions as well, but it's good for Sony. I wonder how much they paid for that.
So I'm looking, and there's a thread on Reset Era where people are looking at the box that seems to suggest it is a 1 year exclusive.
You're a braver soul than me, because I wouldn't dare click on that website.
So it doesn't look like it's confirmed, but it looks like there's some evidence to support that.
He's saying it just came out an hour ago.
Oh,
So,
All right. Well, we'll have to
we'll have to look into it. Yeah.
look into it.
we definitely plan our timing with our podcast.
Yeah.
FF7 Remake news comes out right when we're done.
Yeah. It is what it is. That's interesting though. I mean, I don't plan on playing it on any other console, so I'm a big Sony guy, I'm a big PlayStation guy, so
Win?
what's that?
Switch port win?
That wouldn't surprise me. It would surprise me, but it wouldn't surprise me.
You all go on without me. I gotta wait for the Switch version now.
Dude, you'd be all right. Well, I don't know which would come out first. Final Fantasy Remake Part 2 or Switch Part 1. But yeah. But Z Killer, we really appreciate you bringing that up. Now we have some new content to talk about next week. Anyways, though, we really appreciate you all checking us out. If you haven't, we'd really appreciate if you subscribe to our channel. We have a lot of stuff coming up. We have a Crisis Core discussion, Final Fantasy 7 discussion. We'll do a discussion on the 7 remake. Lots of 7 stuff. that we have coming up. We're going to be doing, at least I'll be doing some impressions on the Kingdom Hearts DLC, and we'd like to do some kind of like top games of the last decade, given we're going to be in 2020. So I know Eric's already got his list for games for the whole decade. So we would like to do something like that as well. So probably be doing something on Discord as well. So make sure you go down in our description, join our Discord. That way you can give some feedback and stuff like that. But I guess we'll have to end it here, and we will see you all next week. So take it easy, guys.
Take care.
See you next time.